Hello dear students, this is Dr. Bushra Hussain from Center for Distance and Online Education, Jamia Millia Islamia, New Delhi. In this video, we will be discussing about a very important topic for the teachers and also for the students, assessment for learning. So as we know that assessment is a method for analyzing and evaluating student achievement or program success. So as a teacher, it is a very important aspect for all the teachers to devise various methods in order to assess the students. Because if we will not be able to use appropriate techniques and tools for assessment of our learners, then I think the whole purpose of education will not be achieved. And so as a teacher, it is very important for all of us to know about those methods, tools and techniques that can help us in order to assess our learners. So in this video today, we will be discussing about what is assessment. Assessment, according to Arendt's 1994, refers to the full range of information gathered and synthesized by teachers about their students and their classrooms. So we can say that, as Arendt have also said, that assessment is something which is related to gathering information and also synthesizing that gathered information by the teachers. And that information is actually related to the students and the classrooms. We can also say that in education, assessment plays a very significant role. And in education, the term assessment actually refers to the different varieties of methods or tools that we as teachers, as educators use in order to evaluate, measure and document the academic readiness, learning progress, skill acquisition or educational needs of our learners and students. So again, we should remember that in education, assessment plays a very significant role. Now, when we know that what is assessment, so the next question that arises is, what are the different types of assessment? So assessment is classified by various educationists into different types. And here on your screens, you can see the different types of assessment. So we have formative assessment, summative assessment, diagnostic assessment, peer assessment, self-assessment, unidimensional assessment, multi-dimensional assessment, rigid assessment, flexible assessment. And for every teacher, it is important to use the various types of assessment in the classrooms for assessing the learner's progress from time to time. We cannot rely on any one particular type of assessment, because if we talk about holistic development of our learners, if we talk about holistic assessment or 360-degree assessment of our learners, so it is important for us as a teacher to be aware about the different types of assessment that we can use in our classrooms in order to assess our learners. So here we have certain different types of assessment that we can use as a teacher. So now let's talk about the first and the very most important type of assessment, which is formative assessment. Now what is formative assessment? It is an assessment, it is a kind of a tool which is very critical for all the teachers, for all the educators. Because an educator looks to unlock in-depth information about the students' learning in this changing world of the classrooms. And so we should use formative assessment in our classroom teaching and learning process. Also, it is important to focus on a specific test. Formative assessment actually focuses on practices that teachers undertake during learning that provide information on student progress towards learning outcomes. So as a teacher, if we are really interested in knowing whether the set learning objectives, learning outcomes are achieved or not, so it is important to use various assessment techniques of formative assessment. According to POFM 2008, formative assessment is a planned process in which teachers or students use assessment-based evidence to adjust what they are currently doing. So it is not something which is different, but it is something which the teachers or the students are actually doing in their classrooms. And it is also a way to collect evidences about the students' progress from time to time in the classroom. So this is about formative assessment. Also, according to Napper, in 2013, he suggested that formative assessment can be used during teaching to help gauge if desired learning is being achieved or not. So that means, according to Napper, we can use formative assessment in order to find out whether what the teacher is trying to teach in the classroom is actually being achieved by the learners or not, is actually being understood by the learners or not. So for that, we can use formative assessment. According to Black and William, 1998, the assessment is formative if and only if it shapes subsequent learning. So that means we can say that assessment can be formative if it is able to shape the learning in a subsequent manner. So we can say that formative assessment is an integral part of the teaching learning process. We cannot separate assessment from teaching and learning. It goes hand in hand. If we are teaching, if the students are learning, so the assessment has to be together with the two processes. Also, we can say that formative assessment encompasses classroom interactions, questioning, structured classroom activities and feedback. Also, it aims at helping students to close learning gaps. It helps the teachers to know the learning gaps of the learners, and it also aids the students at the same time to close those learning gaps so that actual learning can happen in the classroom. Then students are also actively involved in the assessment process through self and peer assessment, because formative assessment also promotes self-assessment and peer assessment at the same time. So along with formative assessment, self and peer assessment actually helps in achieving the goal of 360-degree assessment. Then we can also say that formative assessment actually provides us with information from various external sources that may used formatively, that can be used formatively in order to identify the learning needs of the learners, and this will definitely help a teacher to adjust the different teaching strategies, the different teaching methodologies according to the needs of the learners. Now, the next very important question is, what is the purpose of using formative assessment? So we can use formative assessment in our classrooms, in our day-to-day teaching, in order to monitor student learning and provide ongoing feedback to staff and also to the students. And the feedback is also provided to the parents of the learners as well, so that they can also be aware about what the learners are doing. Formative assessment is actually an assessment for learning because it accelerates the process of learning. It also helps students to identify their strengths and weaknesses. Formative assessment aids the learners to find out what they have learned and what they are unable to learn. And so in this way, they are able to identify their strengths and also their weaknesses. This formative assessment also enables students to improve their self-regulatory skills so that they manage their education. So actually we can see that this formative assessment is able to fulfill all these various purposes. This formative assessment also provides information to the faculty about the areas students are struggling with, so that sufficient support can be put in place by the teachers. So when the teacher is able to find out the different learning gaps, different areas in which the students, the learners are struggling, so it actually helps the teacher as well to modify his or her teaching strategies. This formative assessment can be tutor-led, it can be peer-led, or it can be self-assessment also. And it usually carries no grade, which in some instances may discourage the students from doing the task or fully engaging within it. But on the other hand, it actually proved as a blessing. And it is something that we as a teacher should always remember, that every assessment is not to be graded. When the term assessment comes to our mind, so it is not always be related with the grades and with the marks. And this formative assessment actually needs no grade. It is not important that we grade each and every assignment that we are given in the classroom, each and every task, each and every activity that we are doing with our students in the classroom. It is not important, it is not necessary at all to grade and give marks each and every time in the classroom. And this is, I think, one of the very important things that we should remember when we use formative assessment in our classroom. And finally, we can say that formative assessment also helps to discover what students know while they are still in the process of learning it. It can be tricky, but it is actually very helpful for the teachers and also for the students. So now let's quickly move to know what are the different tools and techniques that we can use in formative assessment. So here on your screens, you can see the various tools and techniques that we can employ in formative assessment. We can have a gallery walk in the classroom only, or maybe in the school corridor. We can use portfolio. These days there are various websites that provide the facility of e-portfolios also. So we can also use e-portfolio. We can give them project, we can give them individual project as well as collaborative or group projects. We can give them worksheet, one word summary after any poem or maybe after any chapter. Talk a mile a minute, that activity can be done, and we can give different topics to the students and we can ask them to speak about that particular topic for about a minute at least. We can give them journal entry. We can have some quick quiz in the classroom. We can also take a paper pen test, but not always. Then we can use concept map as a formative assessment strategy. We can use extempore, quick write about any topic, writing frames, word sort or word wall. So these are some of the activities that we can use as a teacher for formative assessment. And along with these activities, we can always try to find out different activities and different tools and techniques also that we can employ while using formative assessment in our classrooms. So in order to summarize, we can say that formative assessment is a very important assessment, and the goal of formative assessment is to monitor student learning so that we can provide them ongoing feedback that can be used by the teachers, by the instructors to improve their teaching strategies, and at the same time it can be used by the students also to improve their learning. And more specifically, we can say that formative assessment helps students to identify their strengths and their weaknesses, and at the same time also the target areas that need to be worked upon. Also, formative assessment help faculty recognize where students are struggling with, so that the teachers, the instructors can provide them with adequate feedback and also the remedies that can help learners to overcome their learning gaps. So this is all about formative assessment. Thank you so much for being with me, and I will be back again with another video on summative assessment. Thank you so much.